Rabbi said, welcome back to Yerushalmi Eruvin. Chag Sameach to all those keeping Pesach, Chol Pesach. We come and learn first thing in the morning after Shachrit. So we're talking with Perek Hey Halacha Aleph, which is Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph. Now, in order to sort out your tchum for your town, you've got to work out where your borders are of your town. There are occasions where we sort of widen the borders, areas which are not really part of the town itself, but it's like Ibur Ha'ir. So that's what we're talking about. So Kesed Ma'abrin, how do we extend the borders, Ha'arim, of the cities to make the tchum of these borders? I mean, what's called the border? How far do we go out of the town to say, like, this is where we start counting the tchum from? Now, imagine you have a city which is surrounded by rows of houses, and you've got Bayis Shenechnas. You might have one house that's within the general row, and you've got Bayis Yotze, you've got one house sticking out. Or let's say a city is surrounded by a wall, and there is Pigum. You might have a round tower, a round turret in the wall of the town, Shenechnas, which maybe comes in a bit from the general circumference of the wall. Or Pigum Yotze, or one which is sticking out a bit. Or Hayasham Gidudios. You have other ruins of houses, which are 10 tefachim high. Or you have various structures which are on graves, where there was living elements there. So all these various entities, we will extend the borders of the town to include these things. We treat the border of the city like a sort of a square frame, as it were. So you end up gaining in the corners of the town. So we sort of look for the outermost house and then draw a square round it, to include the town and to include these outermost houses. So Kesan Ma'abrin Esarim. So how do we extend the cities? Now, Bayis Nichnas, we said if you've got a house going in a bit, so we still extend the general border. One particular house is in, but the general row of houses are out, so we extend it out. Huh?
You have a Gemara now?
We have a Gemara, yes.
He's going to have Mishnah Aleph, Halach Aleph, Mishnah Beis, Mishnah Gimel. Don't seem to have any Gemara.
What, in the booklet?
Yeah, just...
I don't know. Mazina say, Keneged Pigum Yotze. Mazina say, Keneged. You haven't got Rav Amma? Let me have a quick look. We're looking at the booklet that we use, just to see.
On the second page, just go back to Halacha Aleph.
1 minute. Kesem Ma'abrin Esarim. We're down here now.
That's the Halacha.
Yeah, that's what we're up to.
You started the Gemara, no?
I haven't started just now I started the Gemara. But here's a Midah Keneged. I think Rabas. Notice in Kabo, you got Mishnah Daled. He's put all the Mishnahs together.
I think on the next page, you go back to Halacha Aleph.
Yeah, Kesem Ma'abrin Esarim. Bayis Nichnas, yeah. Yeah, that's what we are, yeah. He just put all the Mishnahs together.
I'll slow down, yep. Okay.
Oh, so Kesem Ma'abrin Esarim. So Bayis Nichnas Matzin, so you've got a house in a bit, then you'll still extend it in line with the other rows. Keneged Oir. Pigum Yotze, Mazina Sa'ir, Keneged. So again, you got one sticking out, we will extend for the one sticking out. So Rav Amma, Ma'abrin. Now, what is the word Ma'abrin? We are extending. Now, what's the word Ma'abrin? What's the root? So some say it's Ma'abrin, which is the wording of a limb, Aver, with an aleph, with a limb. Shmuel, it says Ma'abrin. No, it's an expression of like a woman who's pregnant. We're extending outwards, right, with an ayin. Now, Mandama, the one who says the wording is Ma'abrin, it means Ma'sivin La'eva. We add a limb, as it were. Right, on one side of the town with like an extra limb sticking out. Okay. Mandama, the one who says Ma'abrin, it means we extend it Ishol Bra like a woman who's pregnant, who usually gets bigger. Ta'amantanina, elsewhere we have learned, we do not make a bracha on the candle on Motzi Shabbos, Achi Isolar, until you get benefit from the light. Again, what is the word? Is it Arava Ma'achi Isu, you get benefit from the light? Which is with an ayin. Now, what are the two words refers to? Mandam, the one who says Yaisa with an aleph. The source of this word is it will be good for you. Through this, you'll be appeased for you and you'll get your request. And that's what it says. You don't get a bracha on the candle until you receive the light, you get benefit. Mandam, the one who says Yaisa with an ayin, that source is ladas laus esesh ya'af davar. That means to know something in its time for people who are tired and thirsty for the word of Hashem. So the Mishnah says you don't make a bracha on the ner until the time comes to get benefit from the light. That means when the night comes. We've also learned about the Zara, before the festivals of the Goyim. You're not allowed to do trade with them for the 3 days. Rav Tani, he learned the word Eidehen with an ayin, and Shmuel Tani Eidehen with an aleph. Mandar, the one who says where's the Eidehen is Kikarv Yav Edom, which means day of their breaking, the idols being broken up. It's called their festival. It's a derogatory term. Mandar, the one who says Eidehen with the ayin, ve'edem hema, it says Bali Ro, which means the idols give evidence on themselves that they are worthless. They do not see and they do not understand. And the Mishnah calls the festival of the Gentiles with a derogatory term based on the evidence that's given. So that's with an ayin. What does Shmuel do with the person which Rav brought to support his view? According to Shmuel, hema, what does that mean? They will embarrass those who serve them at the day of judgment. Rav Yochanan b'shem Rav Hoshea. He says the lashon of our Mishnah is ma'abrin with an aleph, and it means by sifin la'eva we add a limb. Tzara eina, Rav Hoshea, he lifted up his eyes, and he looked at Rav Yochanan in amazement. But Rav Yochanan had to say something in his name to explain the Mishnah. Rav Yochanan is quoting Rav Hoshea here, and Rav Hoshea looks up, and you're quoting me, he says. Now, why didn't you explain it yourself? Rav Yochanan said, Lama mistakabe, why are you looking at me? Someone who needs you shows you a nice face for your honor, right? I'm showing you your honor. I'm quoting from you. Someone who doesn't need you will distance himself. Yeah, I can explain the Mishnah like my view, but I said it in your name, in your honor, because I need you to learn other things. That's what he says here. Some say he was a Talmud Chaver. He also was a learned colleague as well. But he's still, whatever. Tanas Asashnin. For 13 years, now listen to this, Rabbi Isai. For 13 years, Rav Yecha Avad Alel Kume Rabbe used to come before his teacher, Rav Hoshea, his teacher, Delay Tzarech, even though he didn't really need to learn anything from him. 13 years he came before him to give cover to Rav Hoshea, like where Musa and another. Rav Shmuel v'Shem Rav Zira, Ilule, were it not for, had he not heard anything from Rav Hoshea, Daya Ella, would have been enough the reward of seeing his teacher. By receiving your teacher is if you're receiving the divine presence. Yeah. Rav Yirmiyah b'Shem Rechia Babach, it says, now Moshe took his tent, he put it outside the camp, and it was called an Oramad, and anyone who wanted to go would go to the Oramad, which was outside the camp. Kama Habarachik, how far was the tent of Moshe Rabbeinu from the camp? Rav Yitzchak a mill, it was a mill. And anyone who wanted Moshe will go to the Olamide. And say here, Ella, Hashem. Anyone who wants Hashem will go to the Olamide. Now, leaving the tent of Moshe, those who were going to Moshe's tent wants Moshe, and yet we're calling it Mevakesh Hashem, searching for Hashem. Why? Because if you see your teacher, as if you're receiving the divine presence. So each one leaving the camp, the pasuk is calling him Mevakesh Hashem. Rav Chelba, Rav Chona, v'Shem Ra. Because it says V'yam Eliyah Tishbi. Eliyah Tishbi, he was from the Toshavei Gilad. He said to Achav, he says, I stood before him if there's going to be any rain. Remember, he put there was a drought, yeah, because the people, he was running away, and there was a drought on the nation. And Eliyah said, Chai Hashem and Kaisel, I stood before him. He was now Rogel in Nevuah. So what have we got here? V'alo Eliyah Tirunin leNeviim. Now, he was one of the late starters, one of the beginners in Nevuah at that time. Which, for us to say, he wasn't Morgan in Nevuah at that time. This was the first time that it's mentioned in Tanakh. We don't find he had any Nevi'as beforehand. And yet he's saying, I stood before him. And all the standings that he stood before Achia Shilani, his teacher, to learn from him, it's as if he stood before the Shechina. Yeah, you with us? Yeah? Rav Chelbai b'Shem Ila in the Beis Shilai. The Chachmei Beis Medrash of Rav Shilai, they said, Afilu Eliyahu mevakesh ma'im lefanav. Even when Eliyahu wanted that they should pour water before him, Elisha would put the water on the hands of Eliyahu. Matam, what's the source for this? It says one of the servants said, Pai Elisha ben Shafat. Oh, here we've got Elisha who poured water on Eliyahu. Now, Asher Lama Torah, doesn't say he learned Torah from him. He poured water on Eliyahu. This was his praise, as it were, right? So we see that serving scholars is greater than actually learning from them. Okay. Now, what else have we got? Standing before the Rav is like standing before the Shekhinah. Now we bring a source for this, that serving the Rav is like standing before the Shekhinah, because if it says, V'hana Shmuel b'shrais Hashem lifnei Eli. And Shmuel is serving Hashem in front of Eli. Why did it say he served Hashem? He served Eli. Ella, although he served before Eli, his teacher, as if he served before the Shekhinah. Tani Reb Shmuel, it says in the Torah, Aaron and all the elders came to eat bread. Moshe with the father-in-law, Moshe but do you think they ate before Hashem? They ate before Yisrael. And a Mekad, from here we see by receiving your friend, the way Aaron and Zakanim, they received Yisrael, as if one is receiving the Shekhinah. And the Bavli goes further. The Bavli says Hachnas Zarachim is greater than receiving the Shekhinah. Yeah? But here he's saying no. What's that, Michael? You right? Yeah. Rav Yaakov Aracha, Rav Yasa, B'Shem Rav Yochanan. Me'echan ma'abri keneged hashakuf. So where we got? How far is the distance that you're going to extend the town for the area which is sticking out Meikadin? You know, how far are we going to extend the town? Ada Penama, until 2,000 amas from the edge of the city, but not more than that. Okay, so, you know, the areas, the outlying areas, the extra houses, etc. Oh, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. Laim is Sabra. Now, it makes more sense. You do it. Ella, you know, Keneged Apigum. Now, surely it makes sense you're going to extend a town, 2,000 amas, when you're widening the town. Maybe you've got Keneged Apigum, you've got a row of houses which are like sticking out outside the town. Aval, when you're extending a border, Keneged Ha'ir, when you're actually going from the actual town itself, Afilu Kama, it might be longer than that. Here we're talking about, now in the notes it says like this, you've got a town which looks like a reish, a long bit and a down bit, okay? And the length of the leg bit is more than 2,000 amas. And the length of the top bit is more than 2,000 amas. So he says, look, we're not going to extend the town, the whole city, from the bottom till the top, all the way. Was that leg goes more than 2,000 amas. But he wants to say, look, the leg is not sticking out with just houses. It's like the main part of the building of the town. That's what the town is. The town is an array shape, you see. So therefore we should extend the borders of the whole town until the end of the regel, until the end of the foot of the reish, and measure the tchum 2,000 amas from there. There's a picture here. I don't know. So it seems if that's the design of the town, we might extend it longer. Rabbi Yaakov said Rabbi Yosef, I also hold that for part of the guf of the ear, the part of the town, we're going to extend the border even more than 2,000. I only said we extend the border till 2,000 when it's like the main row of houses, you know, the extended houses which are outside. Now, basically, he's told us that the main guf ha'ir, we might extend it even more than 2,000 if it's the main part of the town. And then he says, even against maybe some other houses, we should say the same. Amalei. Rabbi Yosef said, now why do you want to say that we're extending the border pigum, let's say against an outlying house? And that's different from the borders, which is the main part of the town. Maybe we're not going to do a extension just 2,000. Maybe even extending the border from that extra outlying house is like the normal gavul, which is the part of the main town. Maybe we're going to extend. Basically, we're going to extend 2,000, maybe beyond the outside house or from the town. This is again. Why do you want to say that extending the border that it's different when we extend the border from the outlying post than extending it from the main part of the town? Why do you want to say there's a difference? And you're saying from the actual town we'll only do 2,000. He says, I know maybe extending it from that extension is like the actual extension which we do from the main town. And maybe we'll do it even to more than 2,000. There's various pirushim on this Gemara. Exactly what is the Gemara saying here? Rav Nachman said we extend the town even ad Roisha de Medinta until the capital. Basically, we'll extend the town without any borders, without any limits, even against the outlying areas as well. As I say, there's different interpretations on this.
It's much bigger.
It will extend it. Okay, now let's bring support to Rabbi Yosef from Nachman. Mil said of Shimon Amakein. We can say like the words of Rabbi Yosef from Nachman. The Amr of Shimon Bayachai. He says, Yachan Elilas says, I'm able to do it. Shu Mahachin Matzor L'Sidon of Tiveris Tzipporin. You know what? You can go from Sur to Sidon and Tiveris to Tzipporin. Adei Ma'aros V'adei Burganin. You can have various huts in the way between the various towns. These towns are more than 2,000 amas, but he allowed you to join them up through rows of huts and so on. And we see you can distance the borders of the town by various other structures sticking out, even more than 2,000 amas. And that's like Rav Yosef and Rav Nachman. Okay, now the Mishnah tells us we extend the town, facing the outlying areas, as we said, when you've got a row of various structures coming out of the town, and the distance between these structures is not more than 70 amas and 2/3 from the town, we will extend the town for that row of houses. Now, what about if there's a distance of 70 and 2/3 from the town? Let's say there's one house, and then another 70 and 2/3, there's another house. But the second house is not exactly in line with the first house. So they're further away from each other, more than 70. So you understand, here's your town. You have one house which is 70 amas away, and you have another house which is within 70. If you drew a straight line from the first house, it would be within 70, but it's not a straight, it's at an angle from the second house, from the first house. So it's further away, right? The second house is not exactly next to the first house, they're further apart, more than 70 amas. But if it was in line, it would be within 70 amas. So ma'ali ten pigum lepigum. Can we extend one house onto the other to extend and extend again? Because it's within 70 and 2/3 from the line which was drawn by the first extension, and where they themselves are more than 70 and 2/3. Milsid of Shun Amrakain, Rish Lakish Amrakain. We can say this that nice in pigum lepigum. Yes, we will extend the town through the second house, which is within 70, to a line you would draw in line with the first house, which is done. The Amr of Shlokish, he said, he says, I can do it, that base mine will be included in the borders of Tiberia, because you can join them together. But as Roya is studying, and we can imagine that the stadium, as it were, which was next to Tiberia, if it's full of houses, even though it's not really a makam dira, it's a place of sport. V'hakatzrin, and the fortress, Nasim B'tach Shivim V'Shiraim Le'Stadin, and that's within 72 amas to the stadium. But base Ma'on Nasim B'tach Shivim V'Shiraim Le'Katzrin, and that's within 70 of the fortress. So it comes out you've got various structures between Tiberia and Beis Ma'on, and we can include all Beis Ma'on within the borders of Tiberia because of these structures in the middle. Now, the stadium next to Tiberia is not where people live, but it still joins up Tiberia to Beis Ma'on through various living places which are connected with it. The tower, which is on one side of the stadium, was close to Tiberia, and there was like a grave or something called Sirikin, which had a living place which is on the second side of the stadium, which was close to the fortress. And we're treating the distance between these two, which are secondary to the stadium, and how they're going to help for Tiberia. So if you're going to measure from the tower itself, on one side of the stadium, less nafsha de Sirikin, then the matzeva of Sirikin, which is on the other side of the stadium, is not b'tach shivim v'shiraim, is not within 70 amas of the tower. So really, it's not really a ibur. It can't be included in Tiberia, and therefore Tiberia doesn't go to Beis Ma'on. And if you're going to start measuring from the widening which is done through the tower, nafsha de Sirikin, the matzeva of Sirikin is b'tach shivim v'shiraim, is within 70 amas of that wider area. So the matzeva is included in the city of Tiberia, and the ibur reaches all the way till Beis Ma'on. So we got an example, we got a drawing here. So you got Tiberia on one side, then the next thing along is this tower, this Migdal, and diagonally across more than 70 amas is the mivtza, is the matseva, is this monument. And then you're right, so it's 70 if you drew a line down and then drew a line across, it would be 70. But after the diagonal, it's actually more than that. Then you've got 70 across to the castle, the fortress, the mivtza, and you have another 70 across to Beis Ma'in. So it comes out, according to Rish Lakish, we extend the city through the second structure, which is within 70 amas from the widened area done through the first structure. Yeah, it's not direct, it's a diagonal across, but if you drew a line and then across, it would be within 70. Even though the second structure is further than the 70 amas from the first one, it's actually more, right? From the words, we can work out the following question of the Gemara, and the Gemara asks, what about, now it's a new question now, what about a karpa fle'ir, right? A sort of a green belt for a town. According to Rameir, we're going to add for every city a karpa for a share of 70 amas, and we're going to measure the schum from beyond this area. So ma'alit and ibo le'ibo. What about giving a sort of what do they call a karpa there? What do they call it? Some sort of area, park area, to a town. Do we do it in addition to the ibo which is created through the second structure, through the mivneh, through that second structure? Are we going to add on to that? Are we going to give a karpuf to a town which has been widened already through this house extension? Or maybe karpuf is made to the main city, not to the extended areas. We say the following, we're going to give this area outside the town in addition to the ibo which is done through the mivneh, the second house which is sticking out. We are going to give a sort of karpuf area. So he said, I can do it in a way to allow Sidon. You can go from Sur to Sidon to Vera to Siparin, through the caves and so on. So between one town and another. So Yerushalmi Eruvin Daf is saying we extend the cities through a row of this structure. The distance between them is not more than 70 amas and 2/3. And basically, once you widen the town through one house, whatever next to it, again we're widening it again through the second house and so on. And therefore, we can say once you widen the borders for this house which is sticking out, you're also going to widen it by adding a karpuf. You'll add that sort of green area around it. Now, then the Gemara says it could be there's no raya from here. It could be there's a difference between a widening through an extra house to a widening through a karpuf by adding this sort of area. Because it says, you want to know, do you add a karpuf to the extension of the city? It's lehiluch. It's an area to add an area of walking beyond the grul, apart from the 2,000 amas of Tchum Shabbos, and there's no extra house, as it were, to widen the town, to widen the borders. So, you want to add another 2,000 amas, whatever it is. You want to add a hiluch of like walking area of, apart from the 2,000. Whereas the case for Shimon Achai was talking about, le'ibur, is to extend the town a bit more. We have another house. We'll extend the city, because we have another house. Now, the second house is within 70 amas, and it joins up to the ibro of the city. Who says that when there's no second house, we're going to add a karpuf before we start measuring Tchum Shabbos? It's not straightforward, this Gemara, is it? It takes a bit of doing. And it was Pesach as well.
I don't understand. Why does he need the karpuf if there's another house?
No, so it could be we'll extend a karpuf as well as the other house.
So in addition to the house, you have
another karpuf, yeah. So the question is, let's see, the Gemara's answering this. Let's see. You got your Gemara. Can I borrow your Gemara for a second?
It's the wrong volume.
Oh, it's the wrong volume.
Yeah.
No wonder.
Yeah.
No wonder you were...
That's why I'm following an eye.
Ah, right. I thought you were looking up all your emails.
No.
Right. I asked for apologies. So here, let's see it again. So the Gemara pushes away the raya, and it says Khan. So the suffix, you would add a karpuf to the ibur ha'ir. The question is lehiluch. You're adding an area of karpuf beyond the gvul of the town, apart from the 2,000 amas, and there's no structure to extend the borders. Whereas Khan, Rishon Bar Yochai was talking about a case leibur, where you're making an extension to the town because there is another house where we're going to extend the town, therefore, And Shimon Bar Yochai says the second house is not 70 amas from the first, and it joins to the Ibra of the city. There's no proof that when there's no second house, we're going to add a karpov to the town before we measure Tchum Shabbos. Maybe we're just going to have the Tchum Shabbos and that's it. Who says we're going to add a karpov onto the Tchum Shabbos?
So what's going to be the difference between Ibra and Chibra?
So it seems the question is, are we going to add a karpov as well as the 2,000 amas? You know, and then the Gemara says, well, it's one thing when there's a house, we extend it through the other house and house and house. But to add a karpov just when there's no house, who says we're going to do that? I mean, one doesn't actually have an answer. But again, there's other interpretations on this. They don't quote them all here. But
so when there's there's a karpov, when there's a choser.
When maybe we'll extend it when there's a house and another house, another house. But to give a karpov, as I said, that they all have problems with this Gemara. To give a karpov when there's no other house beyond the 2,000 amas, we're going to add another area that you can go. We're going to measure there from the end of this green belt. You know, who says we're going to do that? In halacha, we don't have that. You have your 2,000 amas from the edge of the town, and that's it, right?
Nobody's living there.
Yeah. So the Gemara asks about adding a karpov to a town, ibur le'ibur. We thought, well, maybe if Shimon Bar Yochai says you do it, but then says no. He's talking about where you're adding onto houses, another house, another house. Now the Gemara brings machlokes Amoraim. Can you extend the gvul of a town more than 2,000 amas? And the Gemara brings that the Tana Rav Shimon Bar Yochai held that you can do this. The Gemara brings various opinions. One opinion limits the view of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. We extend even more than 2,000. Another one argues. Let's see. Rav Acha Amar, he said, "It's Palgon Rav Chia Ruba Bar Kapara." Chadam one said, that which we say, the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says we extend the town even more than 2,000 amas is only Be'er Gedaila. We're going to extend a town with 2,000 with a big city, which is bigger than 2,000 amas. Our Be'er Katana, a little village, we're not going to give that an extension, more than the actual size of the village. We're going to give it 2,000 on a little village. Because we don't want the extension on the town to be Yisera Alaika, to be more than the main village itself. But the other Mara says no. No matter how big the thing is, they get 2,000 amas, and not more than that. Amar Pinchas, we have Pinchas said, there was a Talmud of Shalamad Iburai who learned all the laws of the Iburai extension of the city. The 3.5 years in front of his teacher. And he fixed the borders for each one of the various cities of Golil, or various cities in Golil. But he didn't get to the south. He wasn't able to. There was too much trouble there. He wasn't able to do it. Rabbi Bar Rav Yehuda b'Shem Rab, means Keshes. Imagine a town which is in the shape of a rainbow. It's more a bow and arrow sort of thing. And Yeshbein, so you've got a round bit and you've got a long bit. So Yeshbein zu lezu, if you have between one end of the bow to the other end, about 3,999 amas.
From the two tips.
The two tips. Then Mahalech is kula. Then you can go the whole area. You can go from one end of the bow to the other end, and you can go and cross the thing as well. And you have another 2,000 amas. So it's all considered filled in. Yeah. So you end up. You can go here up to 2, here up to 2, and then it's considered a combined area. So you can you can go an additional 2,000 amas because the whole bow is considered like one town. It's got one tchum. However, if between the two ends is Abba Salafim, if it's 4,000 or more, then you only have 2,000 for where you're able. You cannot go from one end of the bow to the other end, but it's not considered as one town.
Just put a little house in the middle.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. Ravacha said, Rav Shmuel said the reason like this. In Yitin Sad Hacha, imagine you leave from the right side of the bow and you put your shoes at the end of the tchum, 2,000 amas from the end of the right side of the bow. He can go round the round bit and come out from the left side of the bow, but Nasilan, and take his shoes. And also, if he leaves from the left side of the bow and he puts his shoes at the end of the tchum, 2,000 amas from the end of the left side. He can go round the bow and come from the right side of the bow. And come and take his shoes. So min kan asibra. So from the left side, he can come and reach to the end of the tchum, or the tchum of the right side, and min kan asibra. And from the right side, he can come and reach till the end of the tchum of the left side, and he can come and reach all that area, like on that round area. Now, are you going to tell me? So if he can come and get his thing one way, right? Imagine he can come at the bottom on the yeser is the straight bit, right? So if he can reach his shoe on the left, are you saying, well, if he comes that way, it's okay, and if he comes that way, it's not okay? So yeah, maruach achas. If he can, how can it be to go from the town maruach achas to go from one side, also to go on the yeser, it's also, but to reach by leaving the town mishtei ruchais musa, from two sides is permitted. I mean, how could it be that one side is permitted and one side is forbidden? I think he says the tchumin of the heads of the bow go within each other, and through that you can reach anywhere in that circle, in that semicircle. So we should treat the whole part of the bow like one town, and to give it one tchum. And we should look at the whole area which is vacant between the two ends of the keshes as if it's full of houses. Yeah? We won't say we should treat it as one combined area. Right? We should be filled in and it's one town. That's the way we should treat it. Okay. The Brown brings another halacha. You have, imagine, a big city. You have a ditch which goes from edge to edge. Which is 10 tefachim deep, 4 tefachim wide. So we can treat it as foolish, as if it's like a division, dividing the town from edge to edge, and therefore the two towns are two different towns. The one town is considered as two. But if it's not 10 deep, or it's not 4 wide, so we imagine as if it's full of earth and it's just been filled in. You have a town which is built on the river edge, and if you have between the town and the nachal, or the valley, whatever it is, 4 tefachim, we measure the tchum from the wall of the town. If, however, between the town and the nachal, the valley, there is a distance of shleisha, just 3 tefachim, we will measure the tchum misfas hanachal achitzon, from the outer edge of this valley or stream, which is distant from the town. We're going to include that within the town, right? Because the nachal is included in the borders of the town. The tchum is measured from it and onwards. You should not have the valley or the stream, whatever it is, a width of Yosem V'Shivim B'Shrai more than 70 2/3 amas. However, if it was wider than 70 2/3, we measure the tchum from the wall of the city. Right. Rabbah says the name of Rav. The nachal, the connection to the town, depends on the distance between the nachal and the town. Now, it doesn't really depend on the distance, but on how easy it is to go up and down it when you're climbing up this thing or going down it. So, Mana Kiyom. Now, what are we talking about? What is so? Maybe it's like imagine it's a sort of hill now or valley or whatever it is. Now, in a case where the slant of this nachal is such that it goes 10 tefachim high over a length of 3 amas, so that's 10 over 24, right? So that's 1 over 1 to 2.4. Now, are you going to start measuring from the outer edge of the nachal? You're not. Basically, it's not easy to climb this thing. So you can't treat this little mini hill as part of the town, even if it's only 3 tefachim away. It's so steep, no one's going to, you can't treat it as part of the town. If it's 10 tefachim in 4 amas, so which is, before it was 10 in 3, so that was 18 tefachim, so 10 in 18. Now it's 10 in 24. It's not so steep. Now, are you going to tell me, you're going to measure from the town or the city? Definitely not. This slant is easy. You can quite easily go up it and go down it, and it's part of the city, even if it's 4 tefachim away. So what are we talking about? Imagine it's going from between 3 amas and 4 amas for that 10 tefachim height. It's not so easy to go, but it's not so difficult. In this situation, the Nachal is considered part of the town, only if it's not a distance of 4 Tvachim. Rav says, Ishi Benuya Ahalim, a town which is full of temporary tents, and it doesn't have fixed houses, then we don't measure the Tchum from the edge of the town. Each person measures from his own tent. If you had, apart from the tents, 3 sort of huts which are made from date palms and willow, or 3 booths, you measure from the outer one of the town, the outer structure.
More permanent.
It's minachitzain. 1 second. These 3 of them are more fixed than tents. Yeah. So 3 of them is considered a town, and it's considered 4 amas. The whole thing is considered 4 amas. The tents which are near Tzrifim and Burganin are botel to them. It's considered 1 town. So we'll measure the tchum for all the people from the outer structure. Yeah, these are considered more structures. It says a person can go outside the camp if they needed to go for their bodily functions, and they would come out. Now, this is the Jewish people in the Midbar. They were living in tents. If a town of the tents, each one measures the tchum from his own tent, how were they able to leave the Midbar to do their things outside the camp? In order to leave a chutz lamachne, they would need to go beyond the tchum. He asked, if it's the town of the tents, each one measures for himself, how do they go to Moshe on Shabbos when Moshe fixed his tent outside the camp? In order to leave outside the camp, you would need to go beyond the tchum. So the Gemara answers, Moshe asa lahen, Moshe made for them, shleisha tzrifin, 3 of these huts, or shleisha burganin, or 3 of these guarding booths, whatever, and through this it's considered a town, and therefore the tchum was measured from the outer edge. Right, so the area of going out beyond the camp of Beis Medrash from Moshe was within the tchum. Rabbi Yossi, you won't give us another answer. Now they camped and they journeyed following Hashem's instruction. Therefore, it's as if they were camped entrenched forever, because they were there fixed, right? So their tchum was like a proper camp. It was within the tchum. It was like a proper structured camp. He said, no, they never knew how long they were going to stay there. They were promised to leave there and go to the land, as if it's for a limited time. They knew for sure they were not going to stay there, because it was not proper camp. So therefore each one should measure his chum from his own tent. So the Gemara says, because of this question, he said, Moshe made for them 3 huts, etc., 3 booths, and through that it's considered like a town. Yeah. Now, Merabah, when you decide the borders of the town, Merabah Ribu Eilam, you make it surah of like a shape in directions of the world, and you make it like a square, which is in line with the 4 directions of the world. Kadeshe Marava, so the west side of the town, Kamarava Shalayim, like the west side of the directions, or the south is to the south. Rabbi Yosef, if you don't know which side is west and which side is south, then say Mad, go and learn Minat Kufa. Go and learn from the seasons in the year, where the sun rises, where the sun sets. The sun rises on the first day of Tkuvas Tammuz, which is of course in the most northerly part, where the sun rises in the middle of summer. It's the it rises in the northeast. Is that right? Rises in the east, goes and sets in the west, and it will start in the northeast. In the longest summer day, it will start in the northeast and go all the way around. So until the place where it rises in the first day of the December solstice, this is facing the east. This is like the face of the east of the borders of the town, where it rises on the first of Teves until the area until the area where it rises in the beginning of the summer, in the middle of the summer, there is facing the west, and therefore you can work out the ruchais, the west side of the border of the town, which corresponds to that which goes between these two places. So in our place, right, it rises in the northeast and goes all the way along the east, and then rises and then sets in the southwest. Yeah, that's where, so it goes all the way along the east, and then there we are. The Hashah and the Ruchos, which the other sides, which are not mentioned, they are Saf and Vadarim, they are north and south. So where it rises on the first day in Tammuz to the place where it sets on that day is Panei Tzafon, is facing the north, and the area where it rises in the Tuvas Teves until it sets in that is the south. Just get his. That's what it says. It goes to the south and it goes round to the north. It goes to the south in the day. And it goes towards the north by Laila at night. It never goes in the day in the north side of the Rukiah. It sort of surrounds the north side at night. It's not seen, and it comes back to where it rises again. Sovev, halech haruach, it goes round. This is referring to the sides. These sides where it mentions they're going round and they're going round, because in the summer, the sun goes in these ruchos in the day, and in the winter it goes round them at night. Okay, I think we will stop here. 1 minute. Yeah, we'll stop here, Rabbi Sai. Okay.